Fighting games are still kicking. A lot of franchises that started all the way back in the 90s are still alive today. But there's been a major change that I noticed that shows up in a lot of these legacy fighting game series, and that's guest characters. I'm not saying that guest characters are a recent thing that's been in fighting games, they've existed for a long time, but franchises that haven't really had guest characters in them are starting to include them. Street Fighter 6 added Mai and Terry from Fatal Fury, Lucy from Cyberpunk is being added into Guilty Gear Strive, and the recent City of the Wolves had Ronaldo and Salvatore Ganacci for some reason. And of course there's franchises like Tekken and Mortal Kombat that have already established having guest characters for a while. To some people, guest characters are exciting, but I've realized that there's been more of a sentiment online that people are sick and tired of guest characters being added to fighting games. I started to notice when some of my own friends say that they're sick and tired of guest characters. So let's talk about it. Are there too many guest characters showing up in fighting games? Do we really need this much? We gotta talk about the pros and cons, obviously. The most obvious pro is that it's just cool. It's cool to see characters from one franchise interact with characters from another franchise. When I was a kid, I loved crossovers. I loved seeing two of my favorite franchises duke it out with each other. One of the first traditional fighting games that wasn't Smash Brothers that I played was Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and I loved it. And that actually segues nice into another pro, and that is it will introduce new people to a series that they wouldn't have been interested in. In an old video that I made not too long ago on this channel, I brought up a point about how some people may have wanted to play Street Fighter because Akuma was in Tekken. And I still hold this sentiment. I still believe that, somebody may see 2B and Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and be like, I should try out that game. I really like Nier Automata. The publisher gets an extra sale from somebody who is a fan of Nier Automata. They get some more revenue, and they can easily split that with the people who own Nier. It's an absolute win for all the developers that are involved in this process. And it's a win for the fans of the character. My final pro that I want to bring up is that it brings something new to the game. Common thing that I've noticed with a lot of the recent guest characters that have been showing up is that they bring mechanics from their franchises over with them. Akuma in Tekken 7 has a Street Fighter 4 style super meter. The Arbiter in Killer Instinct has limited ammo for his pulse grenades and carbine rifle. Cloud in Smash Brothers can charge up a limit meter so he can do limit break moves. And Ronaldo does the soccer. It can really mix things up and change how the game is perceived instead of just having every character play the same in some way or another. And it's cool just to see these outside mechanics be implemented for that guest character. It makes their appearance more special in the grand scheme of things. Now let's transition to the cons, because my first con is related to the previous pro that I just talked about. That being bringing over mechanics from their series. Because these characters bring stuff that isn't from their games with them, they get an advantage sometimes compared to most of the other characters on the roster. If you play Clive in Tekken 8, you are going to have a totally different experience when it comes to playing the game compared to someone who's playing one of the traditional Tekken characters. Akuma in Tekken 7 was considered broken because of that super mirror that I mentioned earlier, because he can do all these crazy inputs that are normal to see in Street Fighter, but isn't the norm in Tekken, because Tekken is a bit more grounded when it comes to its movement compared to Street Fighter. And broken characters obviously mean that people are gonna get mad at them. My next con is something that I've seen the most that people have talked about, and that is taking away a spot from somebody who deserves to be on the roster. Obviously, who is on the roster is subjective. The only people that objectively know who should be on the roster are the people who make the game. But let me show you in an example of what people mean when they mention about who deserves to be on the roster. So let's pretend that I am a huge fan of the Guilty Gear character Zappa. He hasn't been in a game since like Accent Core or whatever. I've been waiting for this character to come back, and I've been crossing my fingers at every DLC reveal from Guilty Gear Strive. Cut to me at EVO 2024 watching the DLC wave that they revealed then, and seeing that one of the characters in that DLC wave is not even a Guilty Gear character. It's Lucy from Cyberpunk. She's not a Guilty Gear character. Why does she get to be in the game instead of Zappa? Why does Terry get to show up in Street Fighter 6 and not Makoto? Why does Salvatore Ganacci get a spot compared to the Mark of the Wolves characters that haven't been in a game since 20 years ago? And that segues to my last con, a con that only really applies to certain fighting games, specifically with City of the Wolves, and that is including real life people. I find it really weird when real life people get added into video games in general and they're not playing a character, they're playing themselves. Many people have already brought up how Ronaldo has certain allegations brought up to him, and yet you can play him in a video game. That just feels weird to me. Salvatore Ganacci seems like a good person overall, but you know, you never know with people. I don't really trust celebrities that much, so maybe I'm the wrong person that should be bringing this up because I don't really like celebrities in general. But it's definitely something to think about, especially with the fact that a lot of people are saying that the inclusion of Ronaldo and Ganacci in City of the Wolves is the Fortnite-ification of fighting games. I don't think that we're going down that direction, though there's definitely signs of it. The closest thing that we could have gotten to Fortnite for fighting games is Multiverses, and that game crashed and bombed. But after all is said and done, we must ask the important question: what does this random, low sub-counted YouTuber has to say on the ordeal? And my opinion is gonna shock you. What I think about guest characters in fighting games is that they are fine in my book. Yeah, I don't really have a problem with guest characters. I think that they're fine in moderation, and also if they fit in the game itself. I think Terry and Mai fit perfectly into Street Fighter 6. I think that it's fun that the Final Fantasy characters show up in Tekken games. And even though I clown on Mortal Kombat a lot, I think that Mortal Kombat has the best examples of guest characters done right. Specifically, the horror characters. They're fun to play as, they fit into the world of Mortal Kombat, and they aren't super broken. That I'm aware of. I don't know if Ghostface is actually secretly top tier and the best character in Mortal Kombat 1. So in the end, I'm excited for more guest characters to eventually show up in fighting games. After all, it's existed for a long time. Let's not forget about the many guest characters that showed up in Soul Calibur. And the Marvel vs. Capcom series, one of the most beloved series in all of fighting games, only happened because Akuma showed up in X-Men Children of the Atom. So I can't wait for more guest characters to be added to fighting games in the future. Just as long as it isn't real life people. My one exception is Fred Durst. Yeah!